All right, so are you ready to dive deep into decentralized AI today? We're going to be talking about Bittensor and Hypertensor.
Yeah, two really interesting projects in the space.
Yeah, and it feels like we're watching two different approaches to building the future of AI, you know, each with its own set of hurdles and breakthroughs.
It is a very interesting time to be following this space. It's rapidly developing. And yeah, both of these projects have this ambitious goal of creating a truly decentralized ecosystem for AI. And that's a lot. Models, agents, the whole works. But the paths they're taking are pretty different. And I think that's where things get interesting.
Yeah, it's like we're watching them try to climb the same mountain, but from totally different sides, and they're using different gear too. And speaking of different paths, let's talk about what's going on with Bittensor. Some of the stuff you sent me mentioned validators trying to game the system. They were calling it fake code just to boost their profits. What's going on here, and why is everyone freaking out?
Yeah, so imagine you're a validator on Bittensor. Your job is to help secure the network process transactions, the important stuff. And for doing that, you get rewarded. That's kind of the incentive. But some validators have figured out ways to manipulate the system they're running, this code, that basically tricks the network into thinking they're doing a lot more work than they actually are. And this lets them inflate their rewards, which obviously is a problem for a couple of reasons.
Okay, so it's not exactly playing by the rules.
Yeah.
I get that. But how does this fake code actually impact the network? Like in the big picture, how's it going to affect the future of decentralized AI?
Well, it's not just about playing fair when people are manipulating the system. Like it undermines trust in the whole network, and then people don't want to participate. Especially the people who are genuinely trying to build cool stuff with decentralized AI. Imagine you're a developer, you're building a really awesome AI app on Bittensor, but because these validators are doing this shady stuff, your app might not have the resources it needs to run the way it's supposed to.
Oh, well, I see what you mean.
Or even worse, like the results that it generates could be totally unreliable because the underlying data has been compromised.
Oh, so this is a really big deal. So it's not just about some validators making a quick buck. It's about potentially crashing the entire ecosystem.
Right, exactly. It affects everyone.
Okay, that makes sense. So I'm seeing that there's a solution being tossed around called BIT0000. What's the deal with that? Is it going to fix this?
Yeah, so BIT0005 is a proposal that's been put forward by some pretty important people in the Bittensor community, and it's meant to discourage this kind of bad behavior, make it less appealing to try to cheat. You can think of it like adding security cameras and alarms to a store. It doesn't mean people won't try to shoplift, but it makes it harder.
Right, makes it riskier.
Exactly.
That makes sense. So it sounds like they're trying to patch up the security holes before things really spiral out of control.
And
this whole Bittensor thing really brings up some interesting questions about building a truly decentralized system. It's obviously not just, flip a switch and it's done. It's tricky to balance, encouraging people to participate and preventing abuse.
Right. It's a constant balancing act. And what I find interesting is that we get to watch it happen in real time. This isn't just theoretical. It's actually happening right now. So it's really valuable to see how it plays out.
For sure. And speaking of watching things play out, let's talk about Hypertensor. They just launched their new Testnet Tensor, and it's causing a huge buzz. Why is everyone so excited about this?
Well, a testnet is basically a playground for new ideas and features. It's like a separate version of the main network where developers can try things out without messing up the live system. So Hypertensor is using this testnet to experiment with a lot of new things: subnet registration, proof-of-stake consensus mechanism, even decentralized inference. It's a lot.
Well, hold on. Let's unpack some of those terms for our listener. What is a subnet, and how does this proof-of-stake thing work? It sounds kind of complicated.
Okay, so a subnet is basically a smaller network within the bigger Hypertensor network. You can think of it like a space for a particular type of AI application or a group of people with shared interests. And proof of stake is a way of securing the network that relies on users staking their crypto as a way to help verify transactions. It's like a security deposit.
Interesting. So it's like you're putting your money where your mouth is. You're saying, I trust this network with my crypto.
Exactly. And the more crypto you stake, the more influence you have.
Okay, that makes sense. It sounds like Hypertensor is trying to build a really strong and decentralized system from the ground up. But what about this decentralized inference thing? That sounds pretty intense.
Yeah. So decentralized inference is all about distributing the computing power that's needed to run these big AI models. So instead of relying on a central server farm, Hypertensor wants to let anybody contribute their own computing resources to process and run these AI models.
So basically, instead of a few big companies controlling everything, you're creating a network where anyone can jump in and help out.
Exactly. It's about democratizing AI, making it accessible to everybody.
I like that. And to make this more concrete,
Yeah.
let's talk about DSN1, the first decentralized AI subnet on Hypertensor's testnet.
Yeah, they're running an open sourced and uncensored version of LMA3, which is pretty cool.
Wait, LMA3? Like that LMA3, the one that's been all over the news lately?
The one and only.
Wow. So this is a big deal, and it's running on a decentralized network. That's amazing. So anyone can potentially contribute their computing power to run this cutting-edge language model.
Pretty much. And you can actually check it out right now. Hypertensor has this cool dashboard where you can interact with this decentralized LMA3 model. It's like a sneak peek into the future.
Wow, that's awesome. I'm definitely going to check that out. It sounds like Hypertensor is really pushing the limits. But the thing I'm really curious about is this new no delegate staking feature. Can you break that down for me? Why is it so different?
All right, so no delegate staking is all about giving users more control over how they participate in securing the network. So instead of just staking your crypto on a whole subnet, you can choose to support specific nodes based on how well they're performing or other criteria you care about.
So it's like choosing to invest in a specific team within a company instead of just buying stock in the whole company.
Yeah, that's a good way to think about it, and it's good in a few ways. First, it's easier for people who don't have a lot of crypto to participate. Instead of staking a ton of crypto on a whole subnet, you can stake smaller amounts on individual nodes that you believe in.
Right, so more people can get involved, which is awesome. But how does this affect the nodes themselves?
Well, it motivates the nodes to be on their best behavior because they're competing for that staked crypto. They have a reason to provide good service and maintain a good reputation.
Oh, so it's like creating a competition among nodes where the best ones get rewarded.
Pretty much. And that brings us back to Bittensor and those gaming issues we talked about. Could this more focused approach to staking maybe prevent those problems?
That's a great question, and it's something that a lot of people are thinking about right now in the decentralized AI world. Yeah, it's a really interesting idea, giving users more control over where their stake goes and directly rewarding those nodes that are doing the right thing. It could make the whole system much more robust and way less susceptible to gaming. But we have to remember, this is all still super experimental. It's like the Wild West out there. We're still trying to figure out what works and what doesn't.
It's true. It's like we're watching the whole thing evolve right in front of us, which is exciting, but also means there's a lot of uncertainty. Speaking of uncertainty, let's circle back to that original question we had. Is Hypertensor actually learning from what's going on with Bittensor? They're definitely doing things differently with their testnet, but do you think they're really taking those lessons from Bittensor's experience and using them? I think it's pretty clear that Hypertensor is paying close attention to what's happening over at Bittensor. And while they haven't come right out and said, hey, we're doing things this way to avoid those problems, I think their actions speak for themselves.
What do you mean?
Well, just look at where Hypertensor is putting their focus. Community involvement, transparency, building a really solid testnet environment, and experimenting with cool features like no delegate staking.
Yeah.
These are all areas where Bittensor has run into some roadblocks. It's not a coincidence that Hypertensor is making these things a priority.
So it's not about just copying what Bittensor is doing. It's more about learning from their mistakes and trying to avoid making the same ones right.
Exactly. It's about taking a good look at what's worked and what hasn't worked in the past and using that knowledge to build something better.
That's smart. It's like that saying, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Exactly.
Seems like Hypertensor's taking that to heart. But it's not just about avoiding mistakes. It's also about recognizing what Bittensor did right and using that to their advantage right.
Oh, absolutely. Bittensor has done some amazing things. They've built a real decentralized AI network that actually works, and they've created this really passionate community around it that's huge.
Yeah, I'm curious, what parts of Bittensor's approach do you think Hypertensor could really learn from?
Well, Bittensor has a lot of experience building and deploying AI models at a really large scale.
Yeah.
They've been running a live network for a while now, so they've learned a lot about the technical challenges and how to overcome them. That kind of practical experience is super valuable.
Yeah, it's one thing to have a great idea on paper, but it's a whole other thing to actually make it work in the real world.
For sure. And that's where Bittensor's experience could really benefit Hypertensor. It's like having someone who's already been through it all guiding you and helping you avoid those pitfalls.
Like a mentor.
Exactly.
It's like each project is working on a different piece of the puzzle, and by sharing what they've learned, they can help each other put the whole picture together.
It's all about collective intelligence. And the cool thing is, everyone wins. The more these projects work together and learn from each other, the stronger the whole decentralized AI movement becomes.
And it's amazing to see how fast this movement is growing. New projects are popping up all the time, each one with its own unique approach. It's such an exciting time to be watching this all unfold.
It's like we're witnessing the birth of a new era of AI, an era where it's not just a few big companies controlling everything. It's open, it's collaborative, and it's all about using AI to make the world a better place.
So for our listener who's been following along with us on this deep dive, what's the most important thing to take away from all of this? What should they be paying attention to as this whole landscape continues to change?
I think the key is to stay curious and engaged. Don't be afraid to jump in, experiment, ask questions, and get involved with the community. There's so much to learn, and the more you explore, the more you'll realize just how much potential decentralized AI has.
Totally. Whether you're a developer, a student, or just someone who's fascinated by AI, there's a place for you in this movement.
And remember, this is about more than just the tech. It's about building a future where everyone has access to AI, where power is shared, and where innovation comes from working together, not competing with each other.
All right, let's take a step back and recap everything we've covered in this deep dive so far. We started by talking about the challenges Bittensor is facing with those validators trying to cheat the system. And then we talked about the launch of Hypertensor's testnet with all its cool new features like no delegate staking and a decentralized version of LMA3. And we also talked about how important it is for these projects to work together, learn from each other's mistakes, and share their successes.
And maybe most importantly, we've started to understand what this shift towards decentralized AI really means for all of us. It could completely change how we think about AI and hopefully lead to a future that's more fair and accessible for everyone.
But like with any new technology, there's still so many unanswered questions like, how are these decentralized AI networks going to handle all that growth? What's going to happen to the economy as this technology becomes more widespread? And how can we make sure these systems are really fair and transparent and that they're actually benefiting everyone? These are the questions we need to be thinking about as we move forward.
And that's where you come in, listener, by staying informed and engaging in these conversations and maybe even getting involved in these projects. You can help shape the future of decentralized AI. It's really up to all of us.
Before we wrap things up, I want to leave you with one final thought, something to really chew on as you keep exploring decentralized AI. Could this no-delegate staking model that Hypertensor is using be the key to creating a decentralized AI ecosystem that's truly sustainable and less vulnerable to gaming? It's a question worth thinking about, and the answer might just lie in the hands of the entire community.
It's definitely an area that deserves more exploration and experimentation. And as we've seen in this deep dive, the world of decentralized AI is all about pushing boundaries, challenging assumptions, and working together to create a better future.
It feels like we're at this crossroads with AI. We've got these huge centralized systems that are controlled by just a few big tech companies.
Right. And then there's this whole movement pushing for something different.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where Bittensor and Hypertensor come in. They're trying to build a future where AI is more open, more collaborative. It's exciting, but it's kind of scary too.
Yeah, it definitely feels like things are changing really fast. And whenever you have big changes like this, there are always going to be some risks.
Totally. But what really gives me hope is seeing how passionate the decentralized AI community is. They really believe they're building something that could change the world,
Yeah, there's this energy there, like they're part of something much bigger.
And it's contagious. You can't help but get excited when you see people working towards something they really believe in. And I think that's what draws so many people to this space. It's not just about the technology itself. It's about those values that drive it. Openness, collaboration, and this belief that AI can be used to make things better for everyone.
That's a really good point. It's about making sure everyone benefits from this incredible technology, not just a select few.
So we've covered a lot in this deep dive, but we've only scratched the surface. There's still so much more to explore. What are some of the key takeaways you want to leave our listener with?
I think the main thing to remember is that decentralized AI is still so new. We're still figuring out how to make it work and what it means for the future, which is actually really exciting because it means there's a huge opportunity for people to get involved and shape the direction this whole thing goes.
So it's not just about sitting back and watching what happens. It's about jumping in and getting your hands dirty right.
Absolutely. Whether you're a developer, a researcher, an entrepreneur, or just someone who's curious about AI, there are so many ways to contribute.
Like what? Give our listeners some ideas.
Well, a good place to start is by joining those online communities for projects like Bittensor and Hypertensor. Jump into the conversations, ask questions, share your ideas. You could also get involved with developing open source AI tools, or maybe you're more of a creative person and you want to explore how decentralized AI can be used for art. There are seriously endless possibilities.
Wow, so many options. It sounds like there's a place for everyone, no matter what your background is.
Exactly. And don't worry, if you're not a tech expert, you don't have to be a coder to make a difference. You can write about decentralized AI,
Yeah.
create educational resources, or even just talk about it with your friends and family. Spread the word about what's happening.
Right. Every little bit helps.
Yeah.
It's amazing to think about how much power we have to shape the future of AI if we all work together.
And the future is happening now. It's not some far-off thing. It's happening right now in labs, in online communities, in the minds of people all over the world who are working hard to turn this vision into reality.
And that's what I hope our listener takes away from this. This isn't just some theoretical discussion.
Yeah.
It's a call to action, a chance to be part of something that could change the world as we know it.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into decentralized AI, I want to leave you with this. The future isn't something that happens to us. It's something we create. And the choices we make today will determine what that future looks like.
That's a powerful thought. And on that note, we'll wrap up this episode of The Deep Dive. We hope you've enjoyed exploring the amazing world of decentralized AI with us, and we encourage you to keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those big questions until next time. Keep diving deep.